before we kicked off the podcast, we talked about, I think the thing that's making you capable of some of these market transitions that you're wanting to go through are ultimately the lessons in leadership and actually running a company. So, I think the reason why you're thinking bigger is you're realizing, oh, wait, like people are the ultimate leverage. And if I can build the company structure correctly, then I can succeed really in any industry. And I would suspect that that's what you're beginning to see. And so you're seeing that and you're like, okay, is the coaching space really where I want to have my like labor force built out, or do I want to move another direction, or do I want to move into another industry? And maybe talk a bit more about, what we talked about right before the podcast kicked off of, because we were both in mutual alignment. And I'm getting my company to this point now where I'm seeing the value of what you shared of like having eyes on every single moving piece of your business so that you can make clean and clear decisions, and managing and leading people with vision. So maybe talk a bit about what role that's played in getting you to where you are now and what role it will play in whatever transition you make.
Yeah, for sure. So a little backstory, right? Because as I shared with Trey and with you guys on the podcast, like my health was one of the things that was at its lowest points ever in 2021. And so I decided in 2022 to make it like, the complete opposite. So one of my priorities. And, as I did that, I realized when I started to take care of myself through good dieting, through exercising, through basically sticking to the promises, that I make out to myself, that's like basically where good leadership is created. First, taking care of yourself. And basically one thing that is the main thing, it's leading by example. Because how can you expect your team to perform when you look at your business as a means to an end? Or how do you expect your team to be loyal to your business when you're just running a lifestyle business? And you have to lead your team and basically make the decisions. And, kind of like a very nuanced example of this is, I always used to ask my managers and my team members, guys, what do you think we should do here? Or guys, what do you think of this? And what I believe is leadership is a leader makes the decisions and of course asks the team for their suggestions and also their input, but leads with the decision first. And that was a big mistake that I made in the past where I would like basically let my team do the leading indirectly because deep down I knew I wasn't capable or confident enough to do that. But to like kind of keep this high level and valuable, the biggest things that I've learned about leadership is that it starts with you and not with anything or anyone else, right? And so that's why like I emphasize so much on health, keeping promises to yourself, and making sure that you know where you're going to and what your goal is. Because if you don't have that, then you don't know like where to lead the team to. It's kind of like just being in the middle of the ocean and not having like a clear destination and just like kind of floating everywhere, right? And so leadership, like to me, that is kind of like the definition of it. And I think like in this space, you hear a lot of like that term, right? Like leadership, and it can mean a lot of different things, but to me, that is what that means. And underneath that, like within the coaching company, right? Like kind of to go into the trenches here, I believe that accountability is the second most important thing, a part of leadership, which is done by the leader, but also by like the executives within the organization. Because, we're all familiar with like the terms of like closing and appointment setting and marketing, but so many people just hire someone on and then they're actually too lazy to check the inbox. While, a lot of my clients, they all do pretty much appointment setting, right? And so then you have a setter. And so many of my clients, it is not direct towards anyone, but a lot of them, like they pretty much just let the setter go loose and just hope something happens and that their business is going to grow. Wow, it requires tracking of KPIs. It requires you to go in the inbox like 5 to 10 times a day, right? And making sure that everything is squeaky clean and going according to plan, because you'll find 8 out of 10 times that these 5 messages were not responded to. These 20 past calls were not followed up with. And the opportunity cost of that is huge. And that can only be tracked through accountability and going into the trenches here and there. And now you may be thinking, well, Bass, I don't have time to do that. Well, then make sure you put a manager in place, because otherwise your company is going to suffer the consequences of that. And funnily enough, too, your appointment setter will not make enough commissions, most likely, or enjoy the opportunity because of lack of leadership. And I guess what happens, your setter is out within the next 2 to 4 to 8 weeks, and you're scratching your head, oh shit, well, why did it happen, right? So yeah, leadership like leads on so many fronts in terms of like business success. And without my team, like I definitely wouldn't hit the numbers that we are and serve the students like in the sizes that we are. So yeah, man, I hope that's valuable. And that's like, one of the key things that I definitely took away like just from practice. Like I've not read books on leadership. I've not watched videos. It's just been like doing the thing. And that's like really what I see is, like a huge deal for people, especially running a coaching business, that they need to master, have traits within their character to make sure they can lead the boat and steer the ship, which again starts with you. You're not going to do that overnight. And with that, making sure the hierarchy is being taken care of, and it all starts with you at the top.
Yeah, I mean, we're not at $1 million a month yet, but it's so funny what you said about that idea of leadership. Just I did the same thing where I would look at I would even look like at a sales rep and I'd be like, what do you think? You know what I mean? And I realized it's so funny that you say that, because I remember, I made that mistake. I made that mistake of being like, what do you think? And I almost, what I was doing in that moment is I was neglecting and disrespecting the experience and knowledge that I have. And I was leaning on them, because it was almost I was afraid to just make a strong decision, Yeah. And I don't necessarily know where that fear comes from, because I've got a great view on the market and a great view on the model. So I don't even really know where that fear of that decision stems from. Yeah. It could just be a fear of being wrong, or it's I think you need to develop this capacity of knowing that it's really just you suspended in the void. It's your job to make good decisions. And even though you have managers and executives in your company or whatever, it's still you. It's still just you. And being really comfortable in that zone, which is why I think, you have this advantage with having a woman like Danique in your life, and why I've gotten better at those sorts of decisions since Lily and I have gotten married. Because now I'm no matter what happens, I've got her. Yeah. Because, these are so many scary decisions that you have to make, but honestly, I think a part of why I was incapable of making them for the longest time was because I was afraid of, what if I make the wrong one? And if I make the wrong one, this will happen. And if that happens, then it was a lot of what ifs. Right. Now it's my floor is so much higher now, because in my personal life, I've built a solid base for myself, and I think I'm very security driven. And in being very security driven, I wasn't willing to make strong calls and hold my team accountable to them to the degree of firing on the basis of them not following my decision. If I would make a strong decision and somebody wouldn't follow through, I'd be like, oh, that's okay. Ultimately you're good enough to stay on the team. And I would just make exceptions. And now I realize that was ultimately a very, very damaging thing for my company. If you enjoyed this clip and you want to mentor directly underneath me and learn all of the strategies that we've implemented into our students' businesses to help over 100 people reach 6 figures a year, 100 to $999,000 a year, and over, I think it's 15 students as of January 2023 to $1 million a year or more, then I want you to go ahead and schedule your completely free consultation with us. There's no pressure to make a decision. We're not going to force your hand. We're just trying to figure out what it is that you need in order to take that next step to either start your online consulting or coaching business in any niche, any industry, or take your existing consulting or coaching business and really scale it to that next level in order to really sustain a business, put a lot of money in the bank very quickly, and serve a lot of people. Okay, so you can use the pinned comment on this video, or if you're listening on our podcast, go to treycockrum.com/schedule-page, and you can check out that page. It's just a simple schedule page. If you fill out a form and we want to know a bit about you, a bit about where you're coming from and what's motivating you to even speak with us, so that we can make sure we give you the best options. And if we notice that you're honestly not in the best place to get started, whether that's financially or time constraints or otherwise, we'll make some other suggestions to you, okay? Our reputation is everything to us, so we're only going to really make offers to people we know for a fact that we can help. And even if we don't make you an offer, it will still be some of the best 45 to 60 minutes you've spent on your business this year, because you're gonna get a custom strategy and be told exactly what you should do next, okay? So book your free consultation using the link in the description or in the pinned comment, or if you're listening on our podcast, treycockrum.com/schedule-page. See you there.